So it's not just donuts in the morning. It's not, buying lunch for people or having company outings, but it's making sure that your employees know that you actually do care and that you're relatable and that your door's open and that this isn't a scary place.
Hey guys, Damien Stevens, host of MSP Mindset, founder and CEO of Servosity. Today I continue my mission to interview 100 of the fastest growing and most interesting MSPs on the planet. Now, as I'm doing my research from my book through these interviews, I've realized most of the fastest growing MSPs niche. However, I learned from Michael Strong today that he threw that playbook out the window. No fancy sales and marketing strategies, no niche, and in a tier 2 city, managed to build his MSP to 55 employees and growing. The secret is all in how he treats his people. If you want to unlock the secrets to treat your clients and your team better than others and turn that into a masterclass in growth, don't miss out on our conversation today. So Michael, help me understand. I think you guys are, is it somewhere around 55 employees?
We are, yeah, 55, based here in Lubbock, Texas. So, West Texas, most people, quite frankly, don't know where that is.
Right.
And so we're about 350 miles west of Dallas. So kind of in between Albuquerque to Dallas to, Midland, Odessa to Denver is kind of, if you threw a dart, that's kind of where we would be in between all those major areas.
Yeah. So help me understand why that matters kind of in your story of growth from being kind of so far from those major metro areas.
Yeah, I guess for me personally, my history is, I was born and raised in Dallas.
Mm.
So, grew up there, you know, middle school, high school, did all of that in Dallas, understood, I guess, the big city, mindset, in some ways the rat race and packed freeways and all of that. And I came to Lubbock for college. And Texas Tech is the major university here, and so studied management information systems at Texas Tech, and worked for an internet provider, and then actually worked for the university for a little bit, and then ultimately met up with my now business partner, and we formed what became Blue Layer today. And but for West Texas, I feel like it is different out here. Being insulated is a really good thing. We have major university, major medical, major agriculture and healthcare. And, so when you kind of look around the country at times when, markets have taken a downturn or areas have been, hit heavily with, whatever the circumstances may be, West Texas just continues to thrive. And, that, you can look out and look at seeing all the rooftops being built, and there's really no slowdown here in West Texas, which is great. So there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit, where it still means something to see people at the grocery store and see people at the coffee shop and shake hands and be relatable for your business. And so for us, it's very personal, very relationship based, and not as much transactional based.
Mm.
So I think it's those values that are kind of woven into the fabric of West Texas, where, I think I've said it before, like your word is stronger than oak here, right? And,
Mm.
for the longest time, I mean, we didn't even have like a proper agreement. It was just, I got you, let's shake hands and get started.
Wow.
And when I had a meeting the other day, and the guy was like, well, I guess you're going to send me a big long contract. And I said, well, I mean, times kind of dictate that I do. And the guy said, well, around here, we still shake hands. And I said, I'll shake your hand every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so just that's kind of just the West Texas way. And we've kind of built a business around being, relationship driven and not transaction driven.
So not being in a major metro area, what do you attribute to the growth to getting to 55 employees?
Yeah, I mean, I look back and it's actually, weird to think that we're even 55. I mean, I remember, you know, when I would put $100 on a credit card, and me and my business partner were like, I don't know. And then you kind of move forward, and our first ever really big purchase was this conference table. It's like now we're super serious. We're going to buy this conference table, and at that point we're like 5 or 6 people, and you think you're going to do some real serious business once you get a real serious conference table,
Yeah.
right?
I remember having a moment like that myself. Our big
Yeah.
time. We have a conference table and everything.
Oh, we still have it actually. It's this big boat shaped table, and we were scared to death to drill a hole into it, to set the conference phone on it. So we never did, right? Then as we've grown, and we have another building, and we got a conference table for that building. Like literally that day we drilled a hole into it. It's just kind of like it's just another table at this point. But it's been really organic.
Mhm.
I've never looked at it, and Jeremy, my business partner, he's never looked at it and said, we have to be 10 people, we have to be 20 people, 30, 40, 50. Yeah, things change as you grow. You're letting go of certain responsibilities. You have somebody who's running HR, and people running payroll and things like that. But I never looked back and said I have to hit some number that's going to be a measure of success. It's just been, I feel, you've heard it. If you treat somebody right, they'll tell one person. If you treat somebody wrong, they'll tell everybody
Mm-hmm.
and everybody they know. That's the deal here. And so our organic growth has just been by having relatable conversations with our clients, making sure that our team here understands, what the mission is, but then trying to take care of everybody along the way. And that's led to, clients referring clients to us where, we don't have it's going to sound crazy, but, we don't go out and beat the streets and knock on doors and send random emails to people hoping that they're going to respond. We don't have this marketing blitz kind of, push. We have plenty of work to keep us busy for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really good place to be. So that organic growth, it kind of just happened on its own. COVID obviously was interesting, for everybody.
Right.
That was certainly a strange time, but we grew through COVID. I think a lot of IT companies, did, or at least should have. The demand on us and what we were expected to provide, and how we were expected to provide it, led to opportunities for uh, people to shift their career and look in different places and what they want to get into. And it's just looking back, I can't point at one thing to say that's what caused us to grow. I'm not going to say it was, we picked up some huge, gigantic client. We've always been really proud that we're fishermen here. We're not whale hunters. And so we've been able to build a survivable business by taking care of a lot of different people, different industries, but ultimately doing it the right way. That's kind of where we've been in that regard.
Hey guys, Damien here. As I continue to interview the top MSPs in the world, one thing has become incredibly clear. It's time that we let go. Even more than that, every time I focus on my zone of genius and get out of the way and do the very few things I'm good at and delegate to others, I'm ready for that next level of growth. One way that I could help you is with Servosity. We co-manage your backups and disaster recovery so you can focus on what you do best, let us do the rest, and then what we do is we test the backups every single day so you never have to worry. If you'd like to engage us or just learn more, click the link below. I think that probably more MSPs could relate to being in, I don't know what you want to call it, but tier 2 city, however you want to frame it, right? Not one of the biggest cities there are in the state or in the nation. And so, but I think we could all, at least I can relate to saying, okay, well, we serve multiple, we're not niched in one vertical. We serve all these different customers in this area. But then what I can relate to is everybody shows up and says the same thing to the same prospect. So
Yeah.
why have you been able to grow?
Yeah. We're all solving the same problems,
Mm-hmm.
just maybe in a slightly different way. And, at the end of the day, customers just want it to work. They want help desk to be efficient. They want engineering to get it done right. They want to make sure you got a plan and a process and all those things. But, getting your team to buy in is, I feel like kind of the main deal. And so from our side, we've looked at it more from the perspective of, how do we build a family from the IT perspective? And so looking at our staff and how we've grown, and I think everybody says, oh yeah, we're definitely a family. We're definitely a family. And I guess the joke would be, well, yeah, of course you get to go home at 5 and does the paycheck clear and all those things. But you know, some of our the greatest employees that we've ever had come through Blue Layer and that are still here at Blue Layer, they didn't come from IT. And I can teach the IT. I can teach you the things. You can learn the things.
Mm-hmm.
I can't make you patient. I can't make you relatable. I can't make you not be a jerk,
Right.
And so if I can't shake those traits out of you, so, and there's also, I feel like people have I don't know, like an it factor, like you've got it. Like I can't, that's the thing I can't teach. I can't teach um, the special part that's in everybody that makes them understand how to get from one thing to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I can teach you the IT stuff. And so from a family perspective, you know, we used to have just like no time off policy. It was just take whatever you need,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of those maturity model things as you grow, right? We kind of got to figure that out, and we couldn't just be, all fast and loose with vacation days, and somebody's taking 30 and somebody else takes 4, and
Right.
all of a sudden that's not equitable, and that's one of those maturity things that we learned kind of as we grew up. But, I think that spoke to, trying to be of that family mindset and understanding that, yeah, sure, people are here to earn a paycheck, but what are they really here for? Is it, because they like vacations? Is it because they like classic cars and they want to go to car shows? Is it, they like to go to concerts or, their pets or whatever those things are? And so, several years ago, we put a board up on the wall in the kitchen, and it was just, "What's your why?"
Mm-hmm.
And people would post pictures of family or vacation or pets or whatever it was, but ultimately just why are you here? And it's not because you love me and you think I'm awesome. I
Right.
mean, I'm sure everybody thinks maybe that's true, but it's because you've got things that are inherently important to you, and this is a vehicle to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just donuts in the morning. It's not, buying lunch for people or having company outings, but it's making sure that your employees know that you actually do care and that you're relatable and that your door's open and that this isn't a scary place. We have clients that do, some real scary life and death kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the IT business. We're really blessed to help people and do what we do and learn new things and test new technology and have all that kind of fun, you know, but it's not life or death.
Right.
And we want people to understand that we want you to grow. We want you to be with us for forever. But I also recognize that's not necessarily the case. We certainly have some long standing employees, which is awesome. And, from a client perspective, we still have day one, 22-year long clients that are still with us. But I think that speaks to West Texas is just treating people right. And, the rest will take care of itself.
I appreciate your humility, but unless all MSPs have grown to the same size and had the same tenure of clients and team that you have, I suspect there's a little more to what you guys are doing than just being located in Lubbock.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm not worried about being 55 employees.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worried about getting to 100. If it happens, it happens. It means that we're we're doing things. I guess it's easy to say we're doing things the right way, but I guess maybe we're doing things our way.
Mm.
And um, this is the only company I've ever owned, right? So I don't know any different. The last time I worked for somebody else was like in 2005, So, it's been a long time.
Yeah,
And so I only answered to myself and my business partner. And um, I think in some ways, we're still trying to figure it out too. There's not a secret recipe that I have maybe and other people don't. It's just that I'm also I don't look at the balance sheet every day. I don't look at the P&L every day. I have somebody who looks at that for me.
mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny. I go talk to her and say, "Are we in business?" And the good news is that we still are. But that means that we're just trying to do it the right way. And I'm not, I guess, trying to make it maybe more complicated than it needs to be.
I'm curious, how do you have this, what I would kind of describe as inner peace or calm demeanor? And so many people are just like, man, every time I add 5 or 10 more people, there's so much more complexity to the business. Or also just, it's real easy to get sucked into the world view of
Yeah.
bigger is better. And I got to get to 75 or 100 or employees, or I got to get to the next revenue milestone or operational maturity metric, or, fill in the blank.
Yeah, if I'm manifesting peace and abundance right now, I'm doing a great job. There's absolutely, chaos in the storm. It's definitely a blessing and a curse.
Mm.
The blessing that, I get to do what I want to do. And the curse is it is complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, but I'm not. I think some people set these BHAG, if you know what a BHAG is, the big, hairy, audacious goal, right? Some people set these wild goals for the business, but grow to 50 employees was never our goal.
Mm-hmm.
Grow to 10 employees was never our goal. The goal was do what we love to do, work for ourselves, take care of people, be relatable, be transparent, and the rest of it, like I said, is kind of just taking care of itself. I'm very fortunate that you know when you have 55 people, then you're surrounding yourself with some really good ones. And
Absolutely.
so from a leadership perspective, we definitely have that. But our own maturity model is one that we're trying to figure out. It's going to sound crazy, but we just hired a controller like 6 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it was finance by committee at that point. We had a fractional group, we had our CPA firm, we had me, slinging spreadsheets, and I'm not a finance guy. I'm not. I got through it at Texas Tech. It's every bit the weed out class in the business college, and I powered through corporate finance. At some point when you're 15, 16, 17 years old, putting together a computer with parts and you're running on a dial-up modem, you're not thinking, man, I'm really going to be slick at a P&L and a balance sheet when I grow up. At least I
Right.
wasn't, right? I was trying to get the most out of my, US robotics modem at the time.
Uh-huh.
And So it's just now with how we've grown, you know, we hired a chief strategy officer. Um, his name's Chris, and I'm terrible with dates and things. It's been 6, 7 years that he's been here with us. But he was one of those hires where we knew Chris because he was a client, and
Wow.
he was the IT guy in the business at one of our clients, and we had an opportunity to bring Chris onto our team, and so we did. And he brought a pretty unique perspective of what it looked like from the customer side.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were kind of trying to figure out, what is Chris's role going to be, and what are we going to do with this position? And it was almost kind of like the day, um, my business partner went full time, and then the day I went full time, it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of like, okay, now we got to figure this out. Now this is real, when Jeremy went full time, we didn't have the revenue to support him.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, you know, let's figure it out. We had the belief that we could do it. When I went full time, we had fortunately had some things, kind of fall our way, and had an opportunity where maybe the risk wasn't as great. Kudos to Jeremy. He took the leap of faith first, and the rest of us kind of followed after that. But Chris was kind of the same scenario where we brought him on board, and it was like, well, what now? And I think when you see good people, you can't let good people slip through your fingers.
Right.
And so we created the position for Chris, and it was chief strategy officer. And we gave him a 1 sentence job description. And his job description was raise the bar.
Mm.
And so for,
About how many employees were you then?
I'd say probably 25, high
Wow.
20s, in that area. And so from a raise the bar perspective, it really changed us. Somebody who kind of looks out over the landscape, similar to Jeremy and I do, but in a different way, from the way of I was a client and now an employee. So what can we do here to improve that experience?
Mm-hmm.
And I think our internal maturity model really improved from that point going forward, because we had somebody, strictly looking at not just how do I make the company better, but how do we make our offering better and our people better. And so that's when, I think we really accelerated not just the family aspect of making sure everybody's treated right here, and all of those things, but how are we going to keep doing what we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the same time, still wasn't ever looking at it that some goal was to be 50 employees. In fact, it I think you're the one who told me that most MSPs are only, I don't know, it was 15 employees or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not a statistic I was familiar with, because it's not a statistic I concern myself with.
Right.
It's just not, I think maybe what I'm more proud of is that we've been in business for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think the survival rate of small businesses is really low, and especially to get to that point. Now, are we in a competitive space? Yeah. I mean, everybody thinks that they're an IT guy at some point in their
Yeah.
life, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But do we differently? Do we do it differently? I guess in some ways I'm still trying to figure that out myself, because there's not a roadmap. I feel like there's not a roadmap for exactly this. Some people might say, you got to build this huge sales team and they got to go out and, sell and pummel people and convince them to, hire your company. And other people are going to say that, that's a terrible idea. You got to get into, marketing this way or doing support that way. And, maybe you need more help desk or more engineers. And, you know, it, if I maybe were to give somebody advice running an MSP, it's, I think you got to listen to your team.
Mhm.
And, what is your team telling you that they need?
Mhm.
And, you know, our help desk is the heart and soul of the company. It's initial, client interaction. It's, you know, we're always striving for first call resolution, all the things that you'd want a help desk to be. But, that experience is critical for us. And why I said earlier that some of our best people never came from IT in the first place.
Mm.
And, you know, that sort of mindset of we can build you up and give you the tools to be successful. Be on this ride with us and let's be successful together is really just all that we're trying to do. I wish maybe I could tell you, here's the 10 things to do. Um,
Wh-
but it's not that easy, I feel like.
Why did I think most people never hire a chief strategy officer? It's just not one of those CFO,
Yeah.
CTO roles that you look at and go, I've got to, the pain hurts. I've got to fill this. So, what made you decide that was the role, the person, the time, all those things?
Yeah. I guess looking back, it's kind of funny because, at the size we were at the time, didn't really have anybody be in HR, didn't have anybody, really being finance. I said I'm not the finance guy, but at that time I was doing payroll, um, processing it, updating it, keeping track of everything, and things like that. And our chief strategy officer doesn't do that either. But it was just the idea that, well, first of all, like I said, you can't let good people, slip through your fingers.
Mm-hmm.
So it literally was, we're gonna make this higher, and then the very next thing we're gonna do is figure out what the plan is. And so, having had that customer experience, you think you're awesome. We all think that we're awesome
Mm-hmm.
until you really get the opportunity to hear it from the other side in an unfiltered manner. And so we got to hear from his perspective. How were we really doing? And uh, I thought the answer was that we hung the moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was a little bit more of, well, this would have been better, or we had this one instance where, or sure, would be nice if you guys could. And I was like, well, hold on a second, like I said, we're the best, right? How could you have these
Right.
suggestions, Uh, but really, we I think employees are also inherently afraid to talk to ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my door is kind of funny. So in this office, technically I have three doors. I have a main door, I have a set of barn doors, and I have a garage door. Uh, so it's kind of funny. I can roll up the garage door. It's a nice day, and this building that we bought literally had a garage, and so we retrofitted it and made it suit my needs. So I technically work out of the garage in an actual office building, which is fun. When we do the office tour, it's great. Our other building has all the help desk and knock area and all that sort of stuff. But um, the raise the bar job title was I feel like what we needed at the time, because it touches every base. What is raise the bar?
Hmm.
You know, so it's a phrase that we use, with our clients. One of my, commercials, it says, let's raise the bar together, right? I think raising the bar is something you do over time. Nobody raises the bar tomorrow.
Hmm.
Maybe you can say, all right, cool, let's raise the bar by getting 365 or, better servers or better firewalls or, any of those things, right? And let's deploy new applications. But raising the bar is a journey that never ends. If if we knew where the end of that was, people would skip ahead.
Hmm.
So it's one thing at a time, and what is that next thing? And so we didn't know what those things were. And what we found out, I guess, over time was we really needed someone who could dedicate a really large portion of their time to visiting with staff in a different way. Um, and I mentioned that, you know, sometimes I guess leadership is maybe not the most approachable. Whether it's you're busy, even though I have all these doors and I say my door's always open, a lot of people are unwilling to walk through it.
Hmm.
And, because, oh, Michael's busy or Jeremy's busy or, I don't want to interrupt them or, anything of that nature. So, I've joked with Chris, he's in some ways kind of become a company therapist. And that has been phenomenal. It really has. And so giving people the opportunity to um, visit about their journey and um, what they need, how we could be better, ideas that they have, and creating a space where, we're trying to foster that collaboration in a positive way. He certainly does, 100 other things, but, he's certainly a great, uh, great at holding the conversation that's very meaningful and making sure that everybody knows that they're heard and how can we figure out those things together, and so he was a great addition to the team, and we've got a number of other team members, our directors and operations and support and engineering that are, critical to the mission of running a business. But I felt like Raise the Bar was fun, and it quite frankly, I was unfamiliar with really that a chief strategy officer even existed. I think we had to like look it up. Like, what is this? What's your, we knew he was going to be a C-suite of some sort, which again, I don't even take that stuff, super seriously. I mean, sure, I'm the business owner, but, I still, help people with their IT problems too, and get in the car and go plug in cables. And, you know, I wear every hat too. And so that's, I guess maybe that's a good point I'll touch on is if you have only one hat here, I think we're maybe not doing it. We're doing you a disservice.
Mm.
And sure, you're maybe in the help desk, but what other hats are you wearing? What are you learning? What is your flight path, right? And so we talk about in that family mindset that are you on the right seat of the bus? And so when employees either struggle or we don't see that excitement or you can just tell, right? You can see
Something's going
these
on.
folks are excited, maybe these folks are not, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have the conversations about you're on the bus, we want you to be on the bus, maybe you're just not in the right seat of the bus.
Mm.
And so we've had employees transition departments, go test those waters, from say help desk to, field technician, a guy who's, driving a truck and doing installs and lifting heavy boxes and doing those things, to engineering or our cyber department or project management, all the things that that we're doing that your typical MSP would have. But your life and your career is a choose your own adventure. So I'm not here to say, you come to Blue Layer, I hired you, for engineering, and that's all you can ever do.
Hmm.
Well, why would I say that?
Hmm.
You know, if you have things that you want to do and we have the need and we can train you on those things, or if you want to learn those things, then who am I to get in the way to prevent that from happening? It's another hat you can wear. It's another, feather in your hat, all those things. We want to encourage that. But you have to do that the right way
Hmm.
also.
Yeah.
I can't, somebody's not necessarily going to become a, server, SAN, VMware expert overnight,
Right.
but if you give them some exposure to those things, who knows what they can do in the future? Why not give them that opportunity? Um, but good people are hard to find, right?
Hmm.
Which is why we want to make sure, give every opportunity to have the right seat on the bus.
Mm.
Because maybe you thought you could do the help desk, maybe it wasn't the best fit for you. Maybe this thing over here, maybe, you know, phone support and updating tickets, isn't just your speed. And maybe you wanted to get into project management. Maybe you're great at, tasks and following up with people and all that kind of stuff. And so maybe we just don't have you on the right seat on the bus.
Hmm.
Now, that's worked for us for a long time. We got to figure out if that's the same method and model that's going to work for us as we continue to mature, because we're trying to make sure that we evolve, as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's easy in the rush of business to go, you're not working out. Like I hired you to, answer these tickets.
Hmm.
And for example, like a lot of us, they're technical. Maybe doing the tech things are natural, and maybe the, speaking to people in a certain way, in a certain manner, and being empathetic, for example, maybe it doesn't come naturally, right? Maybe that's a skill you have to develop or want to develop, or like you were saying, maybe you're better in this different role where you're,
I think I'm probably the perfect example of that. Um, I was technical, the smartest IT nerd, in my high school kind of stuff, right? Fixing everybody's things, and come to college, get a job for an internet company. And, I was the server and network administrator. And then I meet up with, my now future business partner. And, once we started to pick up speed, if it was a technical boxing match, Jeremy was going to pummel me, you know? And so I knew real quickly that um, our business wasn't going to need me to be technical.
mm,
You know, he is technically superior to me. He can code, he can do the server administration, he can do all that stuff without looking anything up. And so, 20 years ago, it was like, okay, well, we don't need, you know, two super technical guys in the room arguing about who's the superior technical
right.
knowledge.
As
And
entertaining as that
so
is, right.
to some people, yeah, that for us to grow, and back then we didn't know what that looked like. It was I could tell the story and show the vision,
Hmm.
and in some ways be um, the Swiss Army knife for the business, and Jeremy and more of the scalpel, where super technical, really sharp, could do anything and everything that we threw at him and still throw at him to this day. But the business needed someone to have the conversations about what we can do and how we can do it, and show the vision. And that's really a role that suited me. So I felt like I was a, really great technical wizard, right? Till I met a better
Yep.
wizard, you
Yeah.
know? And then I knew it just wasn't what the business needed me to do. And now my technical skills have largely dried up.
Mm.
Nobody looks at me now for maybe Michael can solve that weird IT problem. You know,
Right.
it's maybe Michael should get involved to um, make sure this thing continues to move forward in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And, so my time and resources are focused on, grow the business, maintain the business, make sure that the vehicle that we have is able to operate and function the way we need it to. But I'm by far the most technical person in that bus anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is a fun place to be. I don't need to do that anymore. But it is weird having been a technical guy for so long, for sure.
So I want to put you on the spot. You said on the kitchen you've got what's your why? So I'd love to know
Yeah.
what's your why, Michael?
So it's I think it's changed.
Mm.
Um, so early on, um, you know, married, no kids. And, it was do my own thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, and build something, but I didn't know what that something was or could be. I just knew back then that, I didn't want to answer to to somebody else. I just wanted to be I wanted to make my own path, right? And even still, I guess I don't know what that looks like. I'm still on this journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? But looking back now, um, it was grow, do work, figure it out. I mean, I was, before I went full time, I was at a full time job, and so get up early, do a couple of things for yourself, go clock in, go clock out, then go to, what was our little tiny, like I think we could barely turn a circle in this office when we first started. Um, Actually our first actual office was Jeremy's spare bedroom. And so that's a whole funny story we can get into if you want to, but um, it was just grow, try to figure it out, work for yourself. Where's literally the next dollar going to come from?
Mm-hmm.
We do literally have our first dollar in a frame in our other building in the lobby. It's why not?
Mm-hmm.
And so now, though, I look back and I gave up a lot, and I hate that. So,
What do you mean by
and
that?
that part's yeah, it's when you're an owner and you're trying to build something, you miss out on things. And at the time, you don't know you're missing out on them. And so I think my maturity model has been, how do I grow and operate a business? I don't yet want to say successful business because I'm still on this journey,
Mm.
I always feel like I'll be out of business tomorrow. And which is when I hired the controller, it's always my joke. I go pop in, I say, like I said earlier, are we in business today? All right, cool. I'll go focus on this next thing. But, looking back, I guess you don't realize um, what you're giving up until you take the time to really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And with work and travel and those things, I can't tell you how many times I missed my kids losing a tooth. It literally became this real thing where, my wife would FaceTime me and I would say, literally one of the kids lost another tooth. They're like, yep, and I don't know how many teeth they've lost, but I bet you I was only home for 10 of them. And that kind of stuff, you get to be, my age now, I'm 45 and, I wish I was there for more teeth falling out
Mm.
and, or spent more time with, people who aren't with us anymore. And when you're running your business and you're just blowing and going and, on to the next thing, and it's my company and it's me and, all this stuff, you don't realize that, you're passing things by and you're letting other things slip through your fingers. I'm working on that more now than ever.
Mm.
And so that I think speaks to in being a leader of this business, surrounding myself with the right people
Mhm.
and the kind of people who can say, no, I got this. You focus on this thing, and trusting that that's going to happen the way that I would have done it.
Mhm.
So having people who in some ways can think like me and execute the way that I would have done something is so helpful. It's invaluable. But the looking back to now, I'm a different person,
Mhm.
as an operator of a business and how I do things. And would I change things? That's hard. It's 2020 looking backwards.
Well, earlier on you
But I
said
am I am working on different things going forward. Yeah.
earlier on you said something to the effect of, you didn't have this grand master plan of I got to get to 10 people or 50 or whatever it was, and you said something kind of like I just want to do what I love and take care of our team. And
Right.
I'm curious, what was that then, and what is it now? Is that evolved? Has it changed? Is that the same thing? Because if your North Star isn't some external metric, how do you know if you're doing what you're loving? Because we all know sometimes it's long hours and challenges.
Yeah. Do what you love. You'll never work a day in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I get that, but man, I work hard. I'm up early, I'm up late. The curses, it doesn't leave my mind. The things that, I could do better, or I wish I should have, or, we should really be looking at this, or, it's kind of a constant burn in my brain of how are we improving? What are we doing? What should we do better? And, I know my wife sees it in me that, you know, I'm I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about something that's work related. You know,
Mm-hmm.
10, 15 years ago, you know, treating people right looked like, you know, making sure that I was working hard and doing my part to, make sure that the company has income and we can do the things that people want to do, but also making sure that, employees had, um, felt like that they were welcome to be here and that they knew we wanted them here. But talking about that journey 15, 20 years ago, we weren't talking about the journey. It was, you know, come to work, we're going to do the things. This is who we are, but, we're going to have coffee in the morning and we're going to order in lunch occasionally. And, we're going to go hang out after hours and go hit golf balls and, that sort of stuff. Right. You know, now being the size we are, I mean, back then, we didn't have a 401k,
Right.
we weren't paying for health care and we didn't offer gym memberships and the things that we do now. And, those are certainly, creature comforts. I think everybody expects that in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But when we interview people, I think that conversation is the same 20 years ago as it is today, which is, you know, why are you here? And you're not here because I'm awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You're not here because some people don't even know who we are,
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, we'll interview people. You don't have to have a degree and be super technical and all those things. Like I said, we can teach you that stuff, but I can't teach you to care. And if you care and you go the extra mile, And those are the people that we want. And, I want folks on the team who know when the last time they knocked it out of the park was,
Mm,
right? Because it should have been yesterday, or this morning, not 6 months ago or a year ago. I did that one thing and it was awesome.
hmm
No, I feel like I'm surrounded by people willing to fall on the grenade. And, we see it in our internal chat. We see it in our updates and tickets. We see it in all the things that people are willing to do more. And with that that's their buy-in to the understanding that we're all in this together,
hmm
right? We're fortunate enough, even that at our size, once a week, we still have an all company meeting.
Wow.
And, so now we've got 8, 9 people that dial into that remotely, but for an hour every week, we shut down our phone system and we all get together in the same room. And so that meeting is, just one to say, hey, I appreciate you for doing this. We give the employees the opportunity to cheer somebody else on. Thank you for helping me with this issue, or it was really important to me that we got this thing done. And so to give our employees a voice where, this isn't just this is not this kind of dictatorship that Jeremy and I run. I mean, it's a team effort. We want everybody to have their participation, but that continues to evolve. Get to 75 employees, if we're blessed for that to happen. Probably can't have a meeting with everybody in the same room every week. It is getting more and more challenging.
hmm
And but I don't know, I keep hammering on it, the being relatable also. I walk around the office and, stop and have conversations with people, high fives and fist pounds and, all those things. Is there anything you need from me? Is there anything I do for you today? That sort of stuff, when I was working for others, um, that never happened.
hmm
You know, the boss man never came around to ask you how you were doing.
hmm
Right. And so that means something. And, you know, my chief strategy officer helps execute on that meaningful mission of what we do every day. He does it in a, kind of like the company therapist way that I mentioned, which is great for us. I think that's been an awesome hire and experience for our staff.
So let me switch gears. What's been the biggest lesson you've learned over all your years in business, Michael?
22 years at this. I think it's kind of what we've been talking about. I can teach you the technology. I can't make you care. So if you don't care, um, you can go not care somewhere else.
hmm
And so for us, it's the relationship building, the people challenges, the I say a lot that we're transparent, to a fault almost. I'm happy to tell clients what we do and how we do.
hmm
They're hiring us because they don't want to do it,
Yeah.
or they don't know how to do it. And, I really wish we were curing cancer over here, but we're not. We're solving, everyday IT problems and challenges, right? Because if I had a funny incident a while back. Incident's not the right word. We have a client with it's like this $200,000 printer,
Wow.
you know, and this thing takes up a whole room. It's intense, in printer world. It's like it's the Ferrari printers, I guess. And they've been calling to the help desk, and hey, having trouble with the printer. Help desk would work on the printer and you know get it fixed, right? The help desk didn't understand why the printer for them was such a huge deal.
Mm.
So I took the help desk to the client.
Mm.
And so this is something we started a couple years ago where, um, customer comes on board. Yeah, we do the onboarding, we do that sort of stuff, but we take the help desk team, which we kind of have broken up into some pods, if you will, out to the customer
Wow.
so they can see all the things. All right. So we kind of were circling back to customers and in some way kind of re-onboarding people, which I feel is
So
important.
how do you do that
And
practically? I'm kind of curious. Like, what size is a pod, and how
literally
long do you
put them in the
how
car,
long do you spend
put them in the
there?
car. So hour and a
Okay.
half, put a face to the name,
Hmm.
right? And so it was eye opening for the help desk. They had no idea the printer was that big, that expensive, and that hypercritical, right? So any business calls in, typical, I'd say, and oh, you can't print. You're probably thinking, okay, it's the printer near your office, you know, it's a laser jet printer, whatever,
Yeah.
right? We'll get that thing fixed, no big deal. Well, it was a whole different situation to see this huge printer in a big old room that cost as much as it did, to realize that a printer can be the size of a modest house, or the cost of the modest house. And it changed the mindset for the team members.
Mm.
Hey, now when they call about the printer, I know it's not just a printer, it's that printer.
Yeah.
So now there's more buy-in in that process. So re-onboarding clients is something that we do. I think it's more of a, we onboard you when you're here, when you start. But what happens when you've been a client for 5 or 6 years,
Yeah. That's a
right?
great question.
You may have missed things along the way. So we onboard people again. But taking the help desk out in the field, it's not always doable. I get that we do have, we're based in Texas, but we have clients that are certainly out of state and far from Lubbock as well. But taking out the help desk, I know they've really enjoyed that. Not just to get out of the office, of course, but oh, hey, I've talked to you like 50 times, you know,
Yeah.
this is what you look like, and shaking hands, right? And taking coffee and donuts and, doing the things that is more of that relational family component of, here, let me show you how much I mean by this. And I'm going to bring people out to the office, right? Or from our office to yours. And it's been meaningful to our clients to see that.
Mm. That's a wonderful practical. I love that. What's one thing, I know hindsight's 2020, but what's the thing you do differently? What's a thing you go, I could advise somebody else to not do this, or this would be ideal if this didn't happen. You look back and go, I'd love to do that
Yeah.
differently.
There's, I don't think there's probably a lot of little things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe if, we hadn't agreed to do that, or maybe if our contract said this, or maybe if we didn't hire that person, or we really should have hired that person. I think if maybe I think about one thing I could do again, in some ways makes me feel like I missed, or that I would change the journey that I'm on had I fixed something in the past, and I wouldn't change the journey I'm on.
Mm.
What I would do is say, um, we joined a peer group. Um, I think that was maybe a big one for us. Maybe join one sooner. The you know West Texas is, it's pretty tight. It's pretty small,
Mm.
and of our competitors in the area, um, nobody wants to get along, I guess. uh, but we're all in it for the same goals, I think. And so the peer group we're in, nobody's nearby, and nobody feels inherently threatened by the other. So that sort of brain share, is really helpful. We've gotten some products out of it, some ideas, some concepts, but so I think a peer group that's maybe not a do-over. That's maybe a do sooner
Mm,
than do later. Uh, do a do-over. I think for me, that was maybe for the business. I think for me, kind of like I was saying before, you don't realize what you're giving up till you really look backwards and try to hone in on it. To stop and smell the roses a little bit.
yeah.
Um, you know, it sounds crazy. This is just me specific examples, but you know, I have twins, and then a younger daughter, boy girl twins, and a younger daughter. I take my younger daughter to school in the morning, and the me a couple years ago, I think was I don't have time for that. I got to get to the office. I got to get going. This fire burns only if I am there to make sure it's burning.
Hmm.
And so I think my own internal maturity model has been, I'm always trying to, I guess, improve myself, and that's much harder than it sounds. It's hard.
Yeah.
So taking my daughter to school has been awesome. And as a business owner, you think, you answer to no one. So I have like all this freedom and all this flexibility, and it's so awesome. And look how free I am. And no, it's not that way at
Right.
all. It gets back to what I was saying. It's a blessing and a curse.
Hmm.
Yeah. The blessing is I get to do what I want to do. The curse is that I get to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm inherently in this, almost this love-hate relationship with the thing that I've created. So trying to find that balance uh, as I get older, uh, finding that balance is really important to me now more than ever.
Mm,
So I guess a do-over for me would be to try to find the balance um, sooner. Like I said, I missed some things because of an inappropriate balance. And then for the business, I think a peer group much earlier than we did would have been really, really helpful. Really helpful.
mm. I appreciate that. What's something, given all the changes in the industry, given it feels weird to be 55 employees, all the different things,
Yeah.
what's something that you're looking forward to now?
So in 2024, we decided to work on ourselves. So to take some time to, basically maturity model internally, and not on people. I think we're always doing that, like we covered, but um, we base rolled applications. We rolled off of certain applications and into new ones that we had been on forever. Um, I don't necessarily want to call anybody out, but some of the application partners we had for a long time, weren't really partnering with us
Hmm.
anymore. And even though we were spending a ton of money with them, that when we born of the peer group was, why don't you give this platform a look?
Yeah.
You give that platform a look, and you kind of like what you see. And then you look at your old platform and you go, huh, if I'm this got me to, this is that, you talk about how do I get to 100? I think this is it. Okay. We looked at the applications that got us here, and we decided it's not the applications that are going to get us there. And so we did. We changed our RMM platform. We changed our EDR platform. We changed our entire PSA and ticketing platform.
Wow.
All predominantly last
Wow.
year. And
Big lift.
so yeah. Um, Fortunately, the team was there for it. So we built a culture where we can intentionally go through a rough time together, and everybody knew that the outcome was designed to make their experience better and more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And so to say that that's what we worked on in 24, the working on ourselves, gets me what's excited for what's coming going forward. Because, um, you know, we are taking advantage of technologies that we weren't using previously, and of course there's buzzwords, AI and, all that sort of stuff, but not just that, our security platforms that we offer, how tightly we're integrating those things together, what data are we bringing in to learn about things that are happening so we can get in front of them, being more proactive rather than being reactive. It's always been a conversation that we do things for our customers. We never do anything to our customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's um, the working on ourselves was hard. And because we didn't realize, now having done it, we didn't realize how much we needed it before.
Mm-hmm.
And um, it was a major commitment, and we're still working on it. But we're now seeing the fruits of that labor, where the things that took, what's the best way to put this? Maybe things that took 8 steps last year take 3 steps now,
Wow.
right? So if I'm trying to tell a prospect what makes you different, when I say, and we agree that the technology is ultimately going to shake it out the same way. We're going to get to the same solution
Mm-hmm.
probably. Okay. Then my competitive advantage is people and process.
Mm-hmm.
So if I feel like I have the best roster, the best batting order, and I've put together the team that's going to do everything they can to knock it out of the park for you, but understand that a bunt still moves the batter from first to second,
Mm-hmm.
right? We enable them with the right software and the right coaching. That is a team that's built for success. And so I let people know it's the people in the process. We're going to get to the same solution like I talked about. So I'm excited about what we're doing now in 25 and how we're doing it. That new software, that lift was really important. And literally the things that we lifted to came out of the peer group. And so it was that part's pretty awesome. We're excited about that for sure.
Let me flip that question around. What's
Okay.
your biggest challenge right now?
I think, I guess I'll give you the two answers, the for me and for the business.
Okay.
Um, for me, it's um, letting go of a few more things, and uh, getting back to basics. Um, getting back to what got us here. Even though I can't write down that recipe and what it is, but it started with um, just being relatable
Mm-hmm.
and present. Um, so I popped in to a client 2 weeks ago, and didn't know I was coming. You know, just knocked on the door. Hey, you got 5 minutes? Oh yeah, yeah, sure. 5 minutes turned into an hour, and I only walked in and said, "How can I help you this year?"
Mm.
And it just turned into a conversation about, you know, what are they doing? What are they thinking about? And yeah, we do QBRs and those things, but the it was impromptu, it was unscheduled. I was driving by and I was like, the getting back to the basics 20 years ago, I had 5 people that I could go see and I could see them all on the same
Yeah.
day, right? Now I can't do that. And but that's also, I think, what a lot of our clients still want of me
Mm-hmm.
is to know that I am present and that I do still care the same way now that I did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when I said, let me earn your trust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't say, let me earn your business or, anything like that. It's just, let me earn your trust. And because we can go far if we believe that the both of us are going to, solve these things together. For the business, it's still growing the right way. Um, the what got us here, we're trying to figure out if that's what's going to get us there. And, we talked a lot about family, and that is still ever present and, hypercritical important to us. But we talk a little bit about, dream team as well, which is, it's that mindset of, is our staff knocking it out of the park? Are you on the right seat on the bus? And are you a force multiplier for the people around you?
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to surround everybody with people who are of that like mind to be force multipliers for each other. And, you know, it's it's kind of a hard conversation because how do you envision that for the future when I know that we want to be family minded and family oriented, and what do you need and how can I take care of you, and to care. And that's what we got us here. As our clients get more complex and they get larger, and the industry needs change and the capabilities of the industry changes, and I'm positioning on people and process, I'm trying to build the dream team.
Mm-hmm.
And so we visit with our team more than just an annual review, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're only talking to your employees once a year, like, that is a bad place to be, right? Because you missed so many opportunities for you to get better and for them to get better, right? The If this is like a dream team of basketball in the Olympics, in my mind, I think Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan still in some ways had to try out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they didn't just make the team because they're
Yep.
superstars. They're superstars who sit on the bench waiting to play.
And they still
We want everybody to play,
had to practice.
right? And they still had to practice. They still had to sharpen their skills. They still had to be ready. They still had to jump in and take over and be able to do the things. So that challenge is have the family, but still challenge your family to be great. And we don't want our team members to say, I'm in the family, therefore I'm good,
Mm-hmm.
or that you can coast. Okay. We're IT guys, right? I can literally like look at the numbers, you know? So if you are an underperforming team member, I think other people will say, get off the bus. Okay. We're going to say, are you on the right seat on the bus? And how can you become part of the dream team? Because good people are hard to find. And like I said about our longest standing employee, I had no idea he was going to be the network wizard that he is.
Yep.
So once people are in and you've invested, you got to pour into them. So we try to do that by my door's open, my business partner, my chief strategy officer, come talk to us, but we're more intentional about talking to you. If you only get feedback once a year, you miss all this runway to get better and all this runway to improve yourself, which I know you're not going to work for me forever.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish you will. Okay. But life happens. You might get married. You might get a new journey that you want to go on, you go somewhere else. I hope I made you better while you were here because you made us better at the same time. And
Mm,
so it's that people, the family, but really, I think to get us to 100, and like I said, I don't care if I'm at 100. It's not some goal that I'm trying to hit.
right.
I feel like if we're doing things the right way, the goal will hit itself, right? Dream team is kind of where we're going now, which is let's keep trying out. Let's keep practicing. Let's keep raising the bar. Let's hit home runs.
Hmm.
You know, please don't come here and coast because we know if you are, then we're going to have that conversation about why. Why are you coasting?
Hmm.
Because other companies are going to say, go coast somewhere else.
Hmm.
I'm going to say, can we work that out of you and get you practicing again so that we can all be the dream team? And so, you know, those are the challenges, but those are the things that, I think we're looking forward to. I mean, we take a risk on hiring you, you take a risk on trusting us, and let's build something together. We're in the customer service business. So let's solve these problems together. It's far harder than it sounds.
Yeah, for sure. What's the one book, top one or two books you would recommend?
So I did recently order a book because I got a podcast recommendation from a friend who's kind of in my I guess similar situation. The best man for my wedding is who it was, and I think as we get older, we're trying to figure out what are we doing on this journey
Hmm.
of life. So it actually gets here today. I checked my Amazon cart, and so it's called Die with Zero,
I've read, I've read that
and
one. Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
read it. Okay. So I only did so the author was on a podcast called The Drive and did an interview, talked about the book. And so, when we talk about, making the people around us better and the team better, I was talking with my one of my best friends, the best man from my wedding. And, we were like, well, what are we really doing? And he's like, yeah, I think you need to read this book. And so then he sent me the podcast, so I listened to it. So yeah, Die with Zero is, like I said, I'm not a big book reader, but my wife and my two daughters, crush books like they're going out of style, and my son and I are very much the same. We want to go swing a golf club or do something like that, but that one I hope maybe unlocks some of what I'm looking for, and for your listeners, it's all about um, trying to prioritize experiences and um, you know using maybe your influence, whether it's access to things or other people to build other people up around you.
Hmm.
And obviously the main title is Die with Zero. So what's the point of having money on your deathbed? The value of that money to someone younger than you now would be life changing for people. And
Michael, for folks that are listening, how can they find you online or connect with you?
yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Trying to focus on life. I actually deleted social media,
Nice.
um, and so that's been a change. Yeah, my phone was literally like, "Do you miss me?" I think it was like when I first deleted it, my usage rate on my phone plummeted.
Hmm.
But I'm on LinkedIn, certainly on our website, bluelayer.com. I'm happy to talk to anybody and share my experience and what I feel's been good for us. So yeah, I mean, love to. I'm sure maybe you'll put my information on the page too. So happy to visit. Yeah, thank you.
Well, absolutely. Make sure to take advantage of Michael's offer. And Michael, this has been amazing. I've already learned so many things. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on MSP Mindset today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good luck on the remainder of your interviews. Appreciate it.
Thank you.